You wake up at 3 a.m. Your body is still, but your mind is already sprinted miles ahead, reliving old conversations, reimagining future disasters, replaying worst-case scenarios like a broken record. You try to shut it off, but your thoughts behave like 1,000 fireflies in a jar, bumping, glowing, never settling. The room is quiet, but inside your head, it's thunder. You ask yourself, why can't I stop thinking? Why can't I rest even when nothing is wrong, at least not on the outside? You are not alone. Many live in this quiet war zone, smiling in public but tormented by the noise within. It's a paradox of modern life. Never before have we had more tools to relax, and yet, never before have we been more anxious. Our world rewards hyperthinking, the multitasker, the overachiever, the planner who anticipates every possibility. But at what cost? The mind becomes a battlefield, peace becomes a memory, and rest becomes another item on the to-do list we never get to. Let me ask you something strange. Have you ever been afraid of silence? Not the external kind, but the one inside your own mind. Have you noticed that the moment silence begins, the mind rushes to fill it? As if stillness were dangerous, as if presence were unbearable. We don't simply think, we overthink. We don't just observe, we interpret, label, judge, endlessly, obsessively. But what if the mind isn't broken? What if anxiety is not a malfunction, but a signal? A protest against how we use attention? What if the problem isn't that we think too much, but that we've forgotten how to pay attention rightly? Carl Jung once wrote, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." But how can you look inside when your inner world feels like a hurricane? This is the great paradox. We long for peace, but chase stimulation. We want rest, but fear stillness. We desire clarity, but bathe in mental chaos. And we call this normal. We've been conditioned to believe that thinking is the solution to every problem. But what if it's the problem itself? What if the cure for an overactive mind is not more thought, but a radical change in how we relate to thought, not by silencing it, not by fighting it, but by seeing it differently? Because here's the truth. You cannot defeat anxiety by force. You cannot fix a storm by shouting at the clouds. But you can observe, you can shift your attention, you can reclaim the inner stillness that was never truly lost, only buried under mental noise. But that requires a rebellion against our cultural obsession with doing, fixing, analyzing, and controlling. It requires something far more courageous than thought. Presence, a silent witnessing. A shift from thinking about life to experiencing it. So here's the real question. Can you calm an overactive mind? Not by solving every anxious thought, but by stepping outside the thinking loop altogether. Can you stop being a prisoner of thought and become a quiet observer of it? Can you learn to see your mind without believing everything it says? Because the most powerful truths are not found in intellectual noise, but in the still gaps between your thoughts. That's where your real mind lives. Not the frantic voice, but the silence beneath it. And once you feel it, even for a second, you begin to understand. You are not your thoughts, you are not your anxiety, you are the awareness behind them. This video is not about escaping your mind. It's about coming home to it with a new kind of attention, one that is neither passive nor reactive, one that has the power to end anxiety, not by suppression, but through deep seeing. Stay with me, because in the next section, we'll uncover the hidden architecture of an overactive mind, and why your attention is the most powerful tool you've never been taught to use. Subscribe if this resonates. Stay until the end. You'll leave with tools that can shift not just your thoughts, but your entire relationship with them. Why does the mind refuse to rest, even when the body begs for silence? The real problem with an overactive mind isn't just noise, it's misdirection. It's not that your brain thinks too much. It's that it keeps thinking about everything, except what truly matters. We live in a world where attention is hijacked before it even learns how to walk. From the moment we wake up, our consciousness is seduced by algorithms, notifications, endless to-do lists, and social comparison. It's not just distraction, it's fragmentation. In ancient philosophy, there's a word for this, akrasia, the state of acting against your better judgment. You know you need to rest, you know what brings peace, and yet your thoughts scatter like birds startled by invisible noise. So what exactly is driving this mental chaos? Let's go deeper. The mind's evolutionary trap. Your brain is not built for peace, it's built for survival. In prehistoric times, being hyper-aware kept you alive. You had to notice the rustle of a predator in the bushes, the shift in your tribe's tone, the subtle signals of danger. Your mind evolved to scan for threats, not to be still. But here's the twist. In the modern world, the tiger isn't in the jungle. It's in your inbox, your calendar, your social feed, your internal monologue whispering, "You're falling behind." The primitive part of the brain, the amygdala, doesn't care if it's a real threat or imagined, it just reacts. And over time, the mind begins to feed on its own anxiety, like a fire that survives by burning more wood. We become addicted to the very thoughts that exhaust us, the illusion of control. Most people don't overthink because they're neurotic, they overthink because they believe if they just think enough, they'll regain control. If I just find the right solution, the perfect response, the safest plan, then I'll finally be okay. But this is an illusion. As Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Overthinking is often an escape, not from life, but from presence. Because true presence means surrendering the illusion that you can control the outcome. It means trusting that you are enough without fixing, solving, performing, or predicting. And that is terrifying, especially in a culture that rewards hyperproductivity and perfectionism. The tyranny of the inner narrator. There's another villain hiding in plain sight, the voice inside your head that won't shut up, the one narrating your every move, the one rehearsing past conversations and pre-living future disasters. This voice isn't you, but most people never realize that. They live as if every thought is a truth, rather than a passing cloud. The Indian sage Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj once said, "The mind creates the abyss, the heart crosses it." But in modern life, we are trained to live only in the mind. From school to adulthood, everything is about cognition, performance, logic. Feelings are distractions, stillness is laziness, silence is threatening. So the mind becomes a tyrant. It narrates every detail, judges every emotion, and creates anxiety in its effort to predict and protect. But here's the painful irony. The more we think, the less we feel. And the less we feel, the more lost we become. Attention as a currency. In today's world, attention is more valuable than gold. Big tech knows this. Politicians know this. Your own thoughts know this. What you give your attention to becomes your reality, your mood, your worldview, your self-concept. But most people don't choose what they focus on. Their attention is a slave to external triggers. This is not a personal failing, it's a systemic problem. We live in an attention economy, and your overactive mind is its most loyal customer. The philosopher Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." But modern life teaches the opposite. Intervene, optimize, multitask. The result? Mental burnout and emotional depletion. This isn't just a personal struggle, it's a spiritual crisis, the existential loneliness beneath it all. Behind all the noise, all the busyness, all the mental chatter, there is something deeper. A fear that silence will reveal something unbearable, that beneath all the thinking lies an emptiness, or worse, an unanswered question. What am I really doing with my life? Anxiety in its rawest form is often a mask for existential confusion. It's not just that the mind is racing. It's that it's running away. Running from stillness. Running from truth. Running from the parts of ourselves that were never validated, seen, or soothed. And until we face this, no productivity hack, no journal prompt, no breathing technique will bring lasting calm. We must go deeper, into the roots, into the story the mind keeps telling and the presence it keeps avoiding. But next, we will dive into how these invisible forces, evolutionary, cultural, psychological, shape our reality in ways we don't even notice, and how, without realizing it, we may be sabotaging our peace from the inside out. If this resonates with you, stay with us, and if you're finding value, don't forget to like and subscribe. This journey is just beginning. What happens to a soul that never gets to rest? We underestimate what chronic mental noise does to the psyche. Because it's invisible, we assume it's manageable. But just because something is internal doesn't mean it's harmless. An overactive mind isn't just exhausting. It warps your perception, erodes your intuition, and separates you from life itself. Let's explore how. Emotional numbness. The mind steals from the heart. When your thoughts never stop, you stop feeling, not because emotions disappear, but because they get drowned out. Anxiety becomes white noise. It flattens experience into endless analysis. Joy becomes a suspicion. Sadness becomes a problem to fix. Wonder becomes a distraction. Over time, you begin to live only from the neck up, a walking head with a forgotten body. You think about your feelings instead of feeling them. You narrate your life instead of living it. You begin to lose access to the subtle, the sacred, the felt sense of being alive. And without that connection, life starts to taste like cardboard, busy, full, but flavorless, the collapse of intuition. One of the most tragic casualties of a racing mind is intuition. Intuition isn't mystical, it's the quiet intelligence of the body. It's the pattern recognition of a soul that's been paying attention. But it requires space, stillness, presence. When the mind is constantly busy, there's no room for subtle truth to emerge. You begin to doubt yourself. You second-guess your instincts. You outsource your decisions to logic, rules, and other people's opinions. Over time, you lose the ability to hear yourself. This is how people end up in the wrong careers, the wrong relationships, the wrong lives, not because they're blind, but because the noise has made them deaf. The illusion of productivity. In a hyperactive mind, movement feels like progress, but speed is not the same as direction. You can spend your whole day thinking, planning, problem-solving, and yet never take a single step toward what really matters. This is the paradox. The busier your mind becomes, the less effective you actually are. You confuse effort with purpose. You confuse urgency with importance. You become productive at the wrong things. Many people wear mental overactivity like a badge of honor. They call it being ambitious, driven, high-numbering, but underneath it's often anxiety in a costume. True productivity doesn't come from more thought. It comes from clarity. And clarity only comes from stillness, sleep, and somatic breakdown. Your body keeps the score, and when your mind never shuts off, it starts screaming through the flesh. Insomnia, digestive issues, muscle tension, panic attacks that feel like heart failure. The body becomes a battlefield, not because it's broken, but because it's begging you to listen. Sleep, the most essential form of healing, becomes the first casualty. You lie in bed, your body exhausted, but your brain running a marathon. Past regrets, future plans, imagined arguments, it all floods in the moment you try to rest. Because in silence, the mind finally has no competition, and it fills the void with everything you've avoided during the day. This is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to interrupt this cycle. Disconnection from others. A noisy mind is a lonely mind, not because others have abandoned you, but because you're not fully there. You can't deeply connect with someone if you're constantly stuck in your head. You're busy analyzing what they said, replaying what you said, wondering how you came across. You're having 3 conversations at once, and none of them are real. Over time, this fractures intimacy. You start to feel unseen, misunderstood, not because people don't care, but because your mind has built a wall between you and now. Presence is the foundation of love, and when it's missing, relationships start to feel hollow, even if everyone is still smiling. The erosion of identity. Lastly, the most subtle cost of all, an overactive mind rewrites who you think you are. You become your thoughts, your worries, your to-do list, your inner critic. You start living in a constant loop of prediction and rehearsal, always preparing, never arriving. This creates a false identity, not the real you, but the overthinking version of you. You begin to believe you're an anxious person, that peace just isn't in your nature, that maybe you're broken, when in truth, you're just overwhelmed, and this illusion becomes self-reinforcing. The more you believe it, the more it shapes your actions. The more it shapes your actions, the more your life starts to reflect it. This is how people lose themselves, slowly, invisibly, and often with a smile on their face. So what now? How do we break this loop? How do we reclaim the stillness that modern life has stolen from us? In the next part, we'll explore the way out, not through suppression or control, but through something far more radical. Attention, not as a tool for performance, but as a doorway to peace. Stay with us. Attention as liberation. Most people try to calm the mind by fighting. They resist thoughts, they argue with anxiety, they chase the fantasy of mental silence, but the mind doesn't quiet down when it's forced. It softens when it feels seen, and that changes everything. Attention is not thinking. We confuse attention with thought, but attention is not what you think, it's what notices that you're thinking. It's not the voice in your head, it's the awareness behind it. And this awareness is spacious, gentle, neutral. It doesn't judge, it simply sees. When you shift your identity from the thinker to the observer, your thoughts lose their grip. They're no longer you. They're just weather patterns moving across the sky. This is not a trick. It's not denial. It's returning to the truth. You are not your mind. You are the presence beneath it. Anxiety needs an audience. Anxiety cannot survive without your participation. It thrives when you feed it, when you follow its trail, engage its logic, try to fix its predictions. But what happens when you simply notice it, without judgment or analysis? It begins to fade. Not instantly, not magically, but naturally, like a fire dying out from lack of oxygen. This is the paradox. The less you react, the more peace you reclaim. It's not about controlling thoughts. It's about relating to them differently. Instead of being the puppet of your mental habits, you become the witness. Calm doesn't come from silencing the storm, but from realizing the storm isn't you. Anchor to the now. The mind loves to time travel. Regret drags it to the past. Fear launches it into the future. But anxiety only lives in one of those places. Anywhere but now. Right now, this second, can you find the problem, not the imagined future, not the unresolved past, but this breath, this chair, this heartbeat? If you can come back to here, you'll find that most of your pain was psychological fiction. The present is not always pleasant, but it's rarely as terrifying as the mind suggests. Try this. Feel the weight of your body, listen to the quietest sound in the room, breathe, and notice what it feels like to notice. You are not lost, you're just distracted, and the way home is attention. Attention, use the body as a portal. The body is always in the present. It doesn't know how to time travel. That makes it your most reliable ally. When the mind spins, return to sensation. Touch something cold. Press your feet into the floor. Feel your ribcage expand. These aren't spiritual cliches. They're grounding techniques, ancient embodied wisdom. The nervous system regulates not through thought, but through signals of safety. When you drop into the body, you tell your system, I am here, I am safe, I am real. This is not avoidance, this is reconnection, reclaiming the power of slowness. Modern life rewards speed, but the mind calms through slowness. Slow movement, slow breath, slow attention. When you do one thing, just one thing, with all of your awareness, you step into a different reality. Washing a dish, walking barefoot on grass, lighting a candle with intention. It sounds trivial, but it's revolutionary. Because in a world addicted to stimulation, slowness is an act of rebellion, and in that rebellion, your nervous system finally exhales. Let go of the myth of constant calm. Here's the truth no one wants to say. A calm mind is not a permanent state. It's a moment-to-moment practice. You will drift, you will forget, you will get caught up again. That doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. Healing is not about achieving a perfect state of peace. It's about becoming familiar with it so that you can return when you've wandered. Like finding your way back to shore after a long swim. You may be tired, but you're not lost. You remember the way, and every return makes the path clearer. Begin with tiny shifts. If your mind feels chaotic, don't try to fix your whole life. Start small. A 5-minute walk without your phone. A conscious breath before answering a text. Placing a hand on your chest and asking, "What do I need right now?" These moments seem insignificant, but they are how you build a new relationship with your mind. You don't have to escape your thoughts, you just need to stop being ruled by them. Peace doesn't arrive in grand epiphanies. It whispers through consistency, and the more you listen, the louder it gets. Peace is a practice, not a destination. You were never meant to live inside a storm. Yet for most people, that's exactly what modern life feels like, an endless swirl of urgency, distraction, and invisible pressure to keep up. But here's the truth. You don't have to silence every thought. You just have to stop believing every thought. You are not broken. If your mind races, if you struggle to focus, if you feel like your brain is too much, you are not broken. You are awake in a world that numbs. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's that you're deeply sensitive to everything that's wrong around you, the noise, the pace, the constant stimulation. What you need is not more control. What you need is compassion. Your nervous system isn't malfunctioning. It's responding to overload. So instead of trying to shut it down, can you tend to it? Can you offer your mind the safety it never received? Inner richness over outer approval. Most people live outwardly. They chase validation, applause, attention. But peace begins when you choose inwardness. When you stop looking for worth in the mirror of others and start listening to the whisper within. That voice may be quiet at first. It may speak in tremors instead of clarity, but it's real, and it's yours. To calm the mind is not to empty it, but to come home to what matters, to remember that behind every anxious spiral is a soul longing for stillness, the invitation. So here's the question, not just for today, but for the life you're building. What would it mean to stop reacting and start responding? What would shift if you paid attention not just to the world, but to your own awareness of it? What kind of life would unfold if you chose presence over panic? You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't need to become a monk or move to the mountains. You only need to begin, one breath, one moment, one return at a time. Because peace doesn't come from escaping your mind. It comes from changing your relationship with it. Final words. The overactive mind isn't your enemy. It's a messenger telling you that you're overwhelmed, overstimulated, and overdue for gentleness. It's not asking you to do more. It's asking you to slow down, to notice, to feel. Attention is the medicine, and you already have it. So ask yourself right now, where is your attention? And what would happen if you brought it back to this moment? If this video resonated with you, share it with someone whose mind is also too loud. Subscribe for more deep reflective content on psychology, self-awareness, and inner peace. You're not alone in this. Let's walk the path inward together.